It is recording now.
Fantastic. Good evening, fellow commissioners and the general public. My name is Mike Champness. I'm the chair of the Transportation Advisory Commission. Before we begin, please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the county website and on YouTube. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by new state legislation and FOIA, the Transportation Advisory Commission needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. First, because each member of this commission is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all the other members. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. I'm asking each commission member participating in this meeting to state your name and your location from which you're participating when I mention your name. At large, Linda Sperling.
Hi, this is Linda Sperling, and I am participating from my home in beautiful Clifton, Virginia.
Sounds good. Braddock District, Kevin Morse.
Present from Burke.
Fantastic. I am here. Hunter Mill, Kelly Westenhoff. Okay, not at the moment. Mason District, Roger Hoskin.
Roger Hoskin, participating from Mason District here in historic Falls Church, Virginia.
All right, sounds good. Mount Vernon, Pete Sitnick, without the K.
Pete Sitnick, I think I'm here. And if you can hear me, I am. I'm in the Mount Vernon District in my residence up near Montebello.
Okay, fantastic. Lee District, Alexis Glenn, I don't think so, but let's be sure. Commissioner Glenn, you with us this evening? No? Okay. Providence District, Jeremy Hancock.
Jeremy Hancock in Falls Church.
Fantastic. Welcome, Springfield, Eric Thiel.
Here in Fairfax Station.
Fantastic. Sully District, David Skiles. No. And Fairfax Area Disability Services Board, Mary Pauline Jones.
I am here from my home in the town of Herndon.
Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yes, 3 no. Actually 8, including me. So we have a quorum. So fantastic. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to Vice Chair Jones so that I may be heard to make the requisite motions.
Thank you. I accept the virtual gavel. I now recognize Commissioner Champness.
Thank you. I move that we have determined that each member's voice can be adequately heard by each other member of the commission. It is so moved.
You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that. That's Pete.
Been second by Commissioner Sitnick. All those in favor of the motion? I'm sorry, is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Chairman, the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. I next move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this commission to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. I further move that this commission may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated audio conferencing line, and that the public may access this meeting by the Microsoft Teams online platform or by calling 1-571-429-5982 and entering the phone conference ID 692-790-810. The phone number for ADA is 711. Access information is also available at the TAC website. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
That was seconded by Commissioner Hoskins. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Mr. Chairman, the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you again. Finally, I move that all the matters on the agenda previously furnished and posted on the TAC website are necessary for continuity in Fairfax County government and or are statutorily required to necessary to continue operations and the discharge of the Commission's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities.
You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Braddock.
Thank you. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention? Mr. Chairman, the motion is carried unanimously. I now pass back the virtual gavel.
Thank you very much. We will now start the tax business per the approved agenda at 7:40 p.m. No remarks to start this evening. We'll talk about the Board of Transportation Committee meeting that we made a presentation at a couple weeks ago, and so nothing else to open up. At this point, would like to see if there's any public or guests here. I know that Calvin, he's with us all the time, didn't quite qualify as a guest, but I know Calvin is with us. And Martha, I know that you're with us as well, and look forward to hearing from you. Is there any other public or guests that we ought to be greeting? All right, sounds good. In that case, let's move on to acceptance of the previous meeting minutes. They have been distributed earlier. The spelling error was corrected. Is there any other comments or corrections on the meeting minutes? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes then.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion on the floor and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from the February meeting as distributed. Although, any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, fantastic. The motion carries unanimously by voice vote. So very good news. So we're just powering through the agenda this evening. We're 8 minutes ahead of time already. Good start. Martha, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I know you were just recently in front of the BTC. So here we are, the gauntlet continues of rough and tumble customers. We're joking, of course. We're very glad to have you here. Look forward to hearing the update. Look forward to hearing, your thoughts on what the board's looking at, any follow-up and things like that. We do want to sort of keep up, and I know this is a very important project. So greatly appreciate you taking the time to come join us. And with that, Martha, I'd like to turn the floor over to you for the update. And somebody's got a hot mic. If you could please turn it off. Thanks, appreciate it.
Well, good evening, everyone. Some of you have seen me before. I think I've frequented a few holiday TAC meetings before. So
we are known as a party animal group. That's true.
I know. That was my recollection. So, and I apologize that, some of you did attend the Board Transportation Committee last week. So I am going to talk through a very similar presentation, but hopefully I can go into a little bit more detail than I usually rush through at the Board Transportation Committee. And obviously happy to take any questions that you have at the end, or talk to a slide if we need to do that. I think they gave me a lot of time. I don't know if I need that much, but happy to respond to your questions. So let me go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Oh. There we go. Okay, so again, my name is Martha Elena Coelho. I'm the Special Projects Division Chief at Fcdot. I'm going to provide you this Dulles Corridor Metro Rail project update. So we always start off with phase one. The main thing to know with this is that we have completed the Old Meadow Road realignment. And just a little background on that is that when phase one went through, there's an aerial guideway, and you can kind of see it in this top picture. There's an aerial guideway here on the north side of 123 near the McLean station. Where they put the piers created a little bit of issues with people crossing through the intersection, crossing 123. So going from the Capital One side, if you're familiar with that, and crossing 123 to go to Old Meadow Road. So realignment was needed to make sure there was a straight transition through the intersection. So and while that was actually part of the phase one work, it was just was put off towards the end. And the other remaining items, the good news about the Old Meadow Road, is that it was completed last year. So that's up and operational. The other remaining item remains the shoulder repairs and the manhole structure repair also near the Dulles Connector Road shoulder. And that work is expected this year. There's been no change to the phase one closeout budget. So phase two obviously is the big elephant in the room, particularly with regards to the Silver Line. I have here, it is 100% complete in terms of construction. And if you were, following the news towards the fall, late fall last year, the two major elements of the project achieved substantial completion. For package A, that's what we call the station systems and track. That's really the part of the facility, the part of the Silver Line that you see if you're riding it, really. That was announced on November 4th, 2021. And package B is a rail yard. Everything that involves the maintenance of the train cars, getting the employees out there and onto the trains to start the service in the morning. A huge facility, with obviously a lot of electrical programming needed. That was substantially complete, and that was announced December 1st, 2021. So the budget for phase 2 is $2.778 billion. The expenditures to date are $2.51 billion, and there's $134 million in contingency left for this project. So this graphic is intended to show what comes next. We've constructed the project, and if you can see on this chart on the left, we have a major milestone, which is substantial completion. And the easy way to explain that is that the contractor and MWA have come to agreement that the project was constructed per the contract. It's really, again, just a contractual milestone between MWA and Capital Rail Constructors, which was a design builder for phase 2. So we've met that. That has happened late fall, as I explained. And now we're in this operational readiness testing phase. And what that means is that this is when WMATA has access to the system to start all their tests. So these are operational readiness tests, simulated service, and at the same time, MWA and the contractor are still, as they're doing testing, there are things being added to the punch list, or they're just working with the punch list that was created before to address that and verify that those things are complete and satisfy WMATA's requirements. There's no fixed duration for this phase.
Sorry, the punch list, is that list of things you have to complete? Is it like a to-do list, or what is the punch list?
Yeah, punch list is pretty much the best way to explain is, if you bought a new house, you walk through it with the contractor and say, oh, you need to touch up the paint here.
Okay.
You need, this door doesn't close right. I mean, just think about it on a much, much larger scale. So some of the things that were part of the punch list may be to replace, some loose bolts. It could be, I'm trying to think of some examples that they've worked through. There's an elevator machine room. Does it meet the specifications for access for maintenance? How do they address that? So all these things are compiled in a list to be addressed. And I'll go into a little bit more detail in a second. But there's a list of these things, and MWA continues to work with WMATA to address those, because really, again, there's no fixed duration for this phase. It's only complete. It's complete based on the completion of the testing and WMATA's determination that the system is adequate. And at that time, sorry, go ahead.
Event driven.
Yes, exactly right. There's no, in our agreements for the project with WMATA, there's no, this takes 6 months, this takes 5 months. It is really based on getting through the list of tests that WMATA has planned. And ensuring that the system's working to their satisfaction. Once they are satisfied, WMATA would declare operational readiness. So that's, if you look at this chart, it's that middle blue diamond there, operational readiness, that's the milestone. And what that does is it's a milestone that kicks in to pre-revenue, the next stage, which is pre-revenue activities. And what's important to remember there is that up until now, it has been a MWA contractor controlled project. So access to the system is really kind of in the hands of MWA. When you hit operational readiness, or that declaration from WMATA, it now becomes WMATA control. So they have accepted that the system is adequate. They now work on the pre-revenue activities, which means doing their inventory management, bringing in additional first responders for familiarization and with the facilities, and updating their policies and procedures. And that's approximately 90 days. And that period ends with the start of revenue service, or the revenue operations data shown in the last blue diamond on the right. So, but ultimately, it is up to the WMATA board to set that date. So it's approximately 90 days, but it's still in the hands of the WMATA board.
This is David.
Okay. Yes. Did someone have a question?
Yes. Okay. Apparently not.
Okay. Well,
No,
I can
this
take
is-
more
this
questions.
is-
Okay. Oh.
This is Skiles joining.
David, hello. Hello. So, okay.
All right.
Welcome.
So in this next slide, I want to give you a little bit more detail about what the progress has been with this operational readiness testing phase. So there are two elements that I mentioned. One is the testing and one is the punch list. With package A, again, that's the track, stations, and systems. It's 81% complete for package A, the testing. For package B, the rail yard, it's 78%. The punch list completion for package A is 73%, and the punch list completion for package B is 95%. I will put in a little caveat with the punch list is that WMATA may still need to go back and verify some of those items, but as far as what was determined as to the path forward to address those issues, the contractor will have determined that that is complete, but WMATA would need to verify that. So as you can see, there has been progress on this in this phase, and I think every month or so we get updated on it. WMATA is presenting this to their Safety and Operations Committee. So you start seeing this moving up, and that's very encouraging, I think, for the project as a whole. The other thing to keep in mind here is that there is a parallel process also ongoing, which is a safety and security certification process. This is being handled by an independent committee. This is the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission. And there are different checks that they have to agree to. And WMATA cannot take the system until Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission agrees that all the safety requirements have also been met. So there are kind of two checks on this, not just WMATA saying, I think it's ready. It's also this independent commission agreeing that it's met all safety requirements. And all that is, again, necessary to open the system. As I mentioned, testing is ongoing, and as things are tested, there's potential for items to be added to the punch list. There's one such example here. While they were doing some testing, they noticed that there are some deficiencies in the heat tape, and the heat tape was about, just for an idea of scale, in about 15 sections of 300. So relatively small in the sense of the whole system. However, it is important to address. They brought the manufacturer out there and have submitted reports to determine that path forward. And I've received this question a lot, so I'm going to try to head it off. The heat tape is what allows the electrified rail to remain a certain temperature so that no icing occurs on the rail that would make it lose contact with the rail car. So it is an important feature that needs to be addressed. The last thing I'll also note is that WMATA has been moving on hiring and training. That is also obviously crucial to getting the system up and running, is ensure that you have the staff, and again, having a large rail yard that will take care of a good portion of a rail line is quite important, and they've been good at meeting their target. So in February, they had a target of 400 and they had 420. So they're making good progress on that as well. So I want to shift gears a little bit.
Martha?
And talk. Yes?
Quick question on that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not at operational readiness, has MWA allowed the WMATA staff to train on the line, or are they just training elsewhere?
No, they have. I will say there has been a lot of trying to do some things concurrently, even before we hit substantial completion. So there is also WMATA staff training. So actually, you can see in some of these pictures here, these WMATA staff this is at the rail yard working and trying to get familiar with the system, and like the wheel lathe training right here in the bottom picture, and here's the fuel center. So they are on site training.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so you may have been aware that Fairfax County was responsible for the construction of 2 parking garages, one at Herndon Station that added 1,900 new parking spaces at the Herndon Station, in addition to our existing garage. That facility was completed in April of 2019. Has actually been on operation probably close to that time as well. It has a secure bicycle room. It has a pedestrian and vehicular connection between the old garage and a new garage. And there's also a connection between the old garage and the Metro Fair Card area pedestrian bridge to the Metro Fair Card area. So it has a lot of access for folks to be able to cross into the metro station. The county has also redone the bus loop there, put in all concrete. That will help for the longevity of that facility, and understand that it was and it will continue to be an important transit hub at what we used to call the Herndon Monroe station, but now Herndon Monroe area park and ride, but now it's the Herndon station. The second garage is at Innovation Center Station. That was about 2,000 parking spaces that were added with a new garage. This garage was completed as part of a public-private partnership, so there is more transit-oriented development that's anticipated around this garage. This garage has secured bicycle parking as well, and the county constructed a kiss and ride and bus bays, as well as a Metro Plaza as part of this larger development. Both of these garages are ready to go. Innovation Center Station only has small warranty items, for example, painting a fire lane, so relatively small. So we believe we're ready to go once phase 2 opens. There are a few other things that the county, we need to work with MWA on. That includes the maintenance and operations agreement that outlines kind of our maintenance responsibilities with the other stakeholders on phase 2. That's Fcdot, WMATA, MWA, and between the counties, both Fairfax and Loudoun. And it's very similar to phase 1, where we had also maintenance and operations agreement that's necessary for us to make sure we all understand who's maintaining what and how we'll be working kind of adjacent to each other at times. The other thing to note is that these stations were subject to a special exception zoning approval. So we do need to work with the Department of Planning and Development to make sure we have the occupancy or the non-residential use permit to be able to occupy these stations. We're anticipating that shortly. We've completed a revenue share parking agreement with WMATA to be able to use our new parking garages, just as you would any other Metro garage. So you could use your Smart Trip and park for the day. So that allows for that revenue to be shared. And we anticipate the equipment, so the toll gates, to be able to be installed shortly as well. Over the last 2 years, we have had staff inspecting our sites as well, because Fairfax County will be the owner and maintainer of the kiss and rides at each of these stations. So we've been out there developing our own punch list, determining what needs to be addressed by the contractor. And so we're about 96% complete with our punch list. And lastly, I think a note of positivity is that we have been in very, very early stages of discussing with WMATA the activities associated with opening day. So that's a bright spot.
Martha, it's Kevin again.
Yeah.
On the maintenance agreement, was that referring just to the 2 garages or the system in general?
That's a system in general. That's ensuring that it's very clear that WMATA is in charge of the tracks, that the bus bays, and the kiss and rides are Fairfax County's, that the traction power substation, that's what helps energize the different tracks throughout the system. That's in WMATA control. So it's really outlining the whole system, even all the way out to the Greenway trip. It's called Trip 2, and they're responsible for that portion. So it's everything.
So I was late getting to the BTC, but I did, as I got there, I think the chairman was, stating his concern about not being stuck with failing issues down the road after this thing is turned over. And in that regard, if after it's turned over to WMATA, anything specific to the Silver Line that becomes an issue, do the other jurisdictions share in the pain, or is that the maintenance agreement outlines that it's Fairfax County's problem?
There are 2 kind of points to that. One is obviously Fairfax County and even now Loudoun would become part of the Metro Compact, helping fund Metro. So if there is a Metro problem, I would say Fairfax County is contributing as a funding partner. So there is a potential for impact to Fairfax County because we help fund Metro. The point of the maintenance and operations agreement is that there are specific items associated with the with phase 2, that may just be Fairfax County responsibility or may just be WMATA responsibility. Like, again, having WMATA be responsible for the traction power substation, for example, if you know, a fence needs to be repaired there, it would be WMATA taking the lead to make those repairs, and funding that through their budget, which again, directly gets funded by Fairfax County. If it is somebody runs into a bench or trash can on our kiss and ride facilities that are owned and maintained by Fairfax County, that is purely a Fairfax County responsibility. We wouldn't go to WMATA for that because it's something that we own and we maintain. So it really depends on what the feature is, and that's what kind of this maintenance and operations agreement is outlining.
So anything that is determined to be WMATA responsibility, it's, you know, Maryland, DC, Virginia, including Loudoun, share in that pain.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Got it.
Okay, the last thing I just wanted to mention, for you may have been updated on this before, but the good news is that the board approved the Silverline Phase 2 bus service plan. So our Fairfax Connector Group has been working diligently on the next steps to enact these changes once Phase 2 opens. So that involves contractor coordination, driver training, bus bay assignments, and our marketing communications team is working on this outreach campaign, which you can kind of see on the right. Really a new bus network built for you and by you, because the connector really did work and have extensive public outreach to develop this system. It is reaching Centerville and Sterling, and they worked hard to address a lot of the comments that came out of a pretty extensive public outreach process. So, you know, we're very excited about that, and we think that, you know, between the combination of our bus service changes and the opening of Metro Rail, you know, we'll have a lot of new travel options for the community. So with that, I'm going to conclude and take any of the questions you may have. And if I need to go back any slides, please let me know.
Thanks, Martha. Appreciate it very much. Would like to afford commissioners the opportunity to ask some questions, additional questions as we any additional questions you may have.
Just one.
Pete, go ahead.
And it's one of the questions I think the board was asking at the last meeting. And when do we open?
Well, you know, the issue is, you know, we're in this operational readiness testing phase, and, you know, as you saw, it's no fixed duration. It really has to be where WMATA feels comfortable, the system is satisfied, and you have this independent commission also ensuring the safety. So, you know, you've seen some of the progress. I gave you some of the percentage progress, and I think we're getting there with operational readiness, but you also have to keep in mind it's at least 3 months, even if they declared operational readiness tomorrow. So that, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, bungle it like I did last time, and I'm just gonna say, you know, even if they did it tomorrow, it's at a minimum 3 months before we would see that. So that puts you, you know, you can kind of do the math as to where that puts you in the year. So, you know, you may be talking about mid-year or so.
Thank you. I'd like that
Sure.
3-month cushion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm happy to jump back in.
Go ahead. I have some questions too, but yeah, go ahead, Kevin. Absolutely, please.
In terms of the budget, the opening slide, this thing still remains under budget, which seems unusual. I mean, the history of mega projects like this, were these numbers adjusted for phase 1 and phase 2 at some point, or were these the original budget figures for the project?
My understanding, and some of this may predate me a little bit, both phase 1 and phase 2 were adjusted at some point in their history. I know with phase 2, it was adjusted relatively early on. I want to say it may have started up at 2.6. There were some additional work that was needed. I think it was announced probably around 2013, 2014 on stormwater requirements that needed to be addressed, and that adjusted the schedule, as well as, I believe that may have also adjusted the budget at that time.
If you know, I know you don't want to set a date for opening date, but if there's, let's say there's continuing delays, does that in and of itself, does that get factored into using up contingency? There must be a cost to delay at some point that they have to assign to it.
Yeah, and I think some of that is honestly is still being discussed to a certain degree. But at this point, you know, these are the latest numbers that we have going forward. I will say that there are items that were identified during the construction and that made the post, you know, on multiple occasions, like the concrete, and there are various other issues as well that will require additional funds for WMATA to maintain long term, and that is still being discussed between MWA, the contractor, and WMATA to determine what that is. So the discussions are ongoing, but it is possible that they could have impact on the budget as well, depending on who ends up footing that bill.
And finally, when we do get into revenue service, do you sign off on, I mean, do your responsibilities shift? Are you done with this project?
No. I think for better or worse, I think I'm stuck with this one for a while. My group handles a lot of the regional mega projects, and there are a few items, and I didn't have a slide on this, that are going to occur after revenue operations, or likely to follow shortly thereafter. One is they have to remove the bus bays on the south side of Wheelie, Reston East. So that is something my group would continue to monitor and ensure is carried out to the satisfaction of Fairfax County. We're also requested MWA to complete a sidewalk connection that we had previously discussed with Capital Rail constructors, and so that needs to be completed as well. And if there are any outstanding issues that are not crucial to revenue operations that may follow on later, my group would continue to monitor those issues. And honestly, you know, the reason Fairfax County has kept ownership and maintenance of these kiss and ride facilities is because we believe that there's greater development potential there. And as the areas change, and I can tell you from my experience with Tyson's, there's been a lot of interface with developers and trying to you know, harness the access to Metro, but not trying to get in WMATA's way of you know, operating the system. So there still are sometimes needs that come even after revenue operations. So this is really not something Fairfax County is gonna, you know, just close the file on. It'll be continual.
I guess, and this is just the last one, more specifically, because a lot of what you just said is concerns still on the construction side. Who would the TAC call in a year from now to say, assuming that it's been open for at least 9 months, who would we call in to say, all right, you know, this is a capital project costing $6-something billion. Here was the projected ridership. Here was the projected economic activity. Where are we on, you know, meeting those projections?
That likely would be a combination of people. It'd be me, probably Tom Bashadny, and if you're talking about development surrounding it, it'd probably be somebody from our transportation planning division. So, I mean, my suggestion would be to work with Calvin, you know, if that's your interest in a year from now, to see where we are and kind of get a temperature of all those items that you mentioned, to work with Calvin. And I think we can get the appropriate staff to potentially give you that kind of update, assuming that information is available and we have it readily available. We'll
see you in a year. Thank you very much.
I volunteered myself there, so.
And maybe the Christmas party before that, but.
If you invite me to the Christmas party, I'm happy to share whatever I need.
Share some cheer and joy. Absolutely. We'll consider it an opportunity there. I did want to ask a quick question now, and then I'll open it up for other commissioners before I ask a few questions. But Martha, you were saying the 3 people, you and Tom, and who was the third person that you suggested come back in about a year?
Oh, I would say if Kevin was mentioning, economic potential and potential, I think I would assume development is what you're talking about there, Kevin. We may want somebody from our transportation planning division to speak to that, since they're the ones who are most familiar with the development activity around stations.
Okay.
Well, clearly, and just Mike to add, and we've had him out here before, the economic specialist, he'd be an obvious one as well.
Right.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I didn't think that's who Martha was referring to in that little group, but I want to be sure. But no, I think you're right, Kevin, that the EDA is another group that we'd want to have join us, sort of take the temperature how things are going. Okay. Are there other commissioners that would like to ask some questions? Well, feel free to dive in, but Martha, I just actually, if you could, back to the chart we were on just a moment ago on the contingency there, and just to follow up a little bit on the questioning that Kevin had there, and particularly the concrete. Yes, I'll read the paper and remember that as a concern there. Understand that until the legal issues are resolved, don't know who's stuck with the bill, but clearly that could sort of blow through that $134 million pretty quickly, if in fact it comes down sort of on, I'll say, our side, so to speak. Are there other big things out there still in discussion that could affect the total cost of the project here, or is it all being wrapped up in one big lawsuit maybe, or how's that being handled?
I'm not aware of any lawsuit.
Okay, that's good.
But
that's good.
I knock on wood, because I'm going to blame you if I hear something next week. But no, I think I think that I'm not aware of any other larger issues out there that more than what has already been, I think, put out there previously while I was going through construction. And you mentioned concrete. There was, there was about probably about a year ago, there were about 14 unresolved issues that M1, the contractor, worked through with WMATA. Some of those things they were able to address, but some of those things had to go back to it meets specifications, or there's only so much we can do to get it where we need it to be. How does WMATA maintain this long term? So there are about, I don't have the exact number. I'd have to write it all out right now, but there are a handful of items that are part of that larger escrow. The concrete being the biggest one, but there are a handful of other items. But from my understanding, I'm not aware of any other larger issues that are looming as they relate to a delay or additional cost.
Just wondering, sort of while we're on the topic, do you have any insights into whether those financial things will be resolved prior to opening, or they'll just drag on as long as they drag on until it's all resolved?
And I'll just say, this is purely my feeling on this, and what I've gotten the sense of from some discussions is that I think that WMATA is very eager to make sure that when the system is open, that these issues have been handled.
Okay.
And they've been addressed and closed. As much as everyone wants this open, no one wants to sacrifice safety, and I don't think WMATA also wants to leave lingering issues to debate later. But that's just my sense at this point.
That's great insight, and certainly WMATA would have some more leverage if the system's not open, and there's a lot of things to balance there. So that makes sense. That makes sense. So appreciate the insights there. The other question I had is back to the actually next to last chart on the bus service there. How extensive is this bus analysis? Is it tied? How directly tied is it just to the Silver Line routes? Is it doing countywide? Because clearly, we will see at some point different transportation patterns. That's part of the idea for this. But how big a bite do you see happening in the beginning, and how do you see this relating to overall bus route discussions?
I don't know if I can say a lot on that. I mean,
Okay.
My understanding is with these bus routing plans is I think there's extensive, not only I mentioned extensive public outreach, but there's extensive analysis associated with this. They try to optimize ridership, and not only that, but needs and equity as well. They also had to do a Title VI analysis review, which ensures that it's not disproportionately affecting certain communities. So, and I'm just going to speak now to my experience with the Tyson's bus rerouting plan. They enacted it, and if there was modification needed, I think our connector staff has been good about analyzing that need for change if it arises, and then trying to implement an adjustment if need be. But I think with this one, they did an extensive analysis, and it took over a big portion of the county. Again, if you think some of the routes are Chantilly, Centerville, Loudoun, it's a pretty large chunk of the county. I don't know the number of routes affected off the top of my head, but like I said, it's probably a quarter of the county right there in terms of the area they studied alone. So I can't speak if they started the entire county, but certainly the way the system and the routing, the bus service review came out certainly touched a lot of the county.
Okay. That certainly makes sense. As a minimum, yes, I would expect you're looking at the effects as a result of the silver line, and when you look at the little arrows in the left there, they look fairly silver line specific, but the graphic on the right looks like sort of an advertisement for improved bus service countywide. And so recognize that you're not the bus person, and we're talking about the silver line, but I was interested in the connection there. So really, is this bus service plan done? I see board approved 222, so it appears that their analysis is complete about the bus changes they need for the opening of the silver line.
Yes, and I mean I have to say they received their approval at the end of February, but the plan has been out and about, I would say, for the last, I want to say almost 2 years. It started pre-COVID and ended, probably 2021 or around that time. So, it's been several years they've been working on this at this rate. But yes, it was approved. And if you would like, I'm sure Calvin or I can send you a link showing you the process and the changes and the plan that was approved.
Absolutely, I would like that, please.
Sure.
Because and Kevin, I'm channeling you to a little bit, because we've talked separately and in these meetings about bus service and making sure it's serving people and things like that, and the fact that the Silver Line assessment has been approved, means that the county feels comfortable with at least that portion. I'm sure they're looking at the rest of the story. In fact, I would imagine they did that simultaneously, so they didn't have things. The sort of things would mesh together. So Kevin, actually, it might be a good opportunity to have a bus service discussion. I'll actually mention that a little bit later when we talk about some of our potential meetings coming up. But that's what I was asking.
There was a interesting digression in the post today. I just read the little blurb at the bottom of the thumbnail, but apparently, so I haven't had a chance to read the article. But Boston apparently has decided to, in certain black neighborhoods, which are much more defined in Boston than they are down here, to have free bus service. But the concept still applies here when what I've been looking at, in the lesser served areas or by income factor. That's a concept that maybe we might want to look at down the road.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that. Those are really the questions that I had. Martha, really appreciate the update. I'm sure the supervisors were pleased to get the update there. Admittedly, we're a little bit on tail wagging the dog a little bit, but we're still a key player in this, and want to make sure we're comfortable. So appreciate you riding shotgun for this right here. Is there any other questions from any other commissioners at this point? So, okay. Well, Martha, appreciate it. Well, if we don't have you to come back to talk about this plan, we'll have you come back and join us for one of those rollicking parties we're known for. So, yes. So, okay. If there's no other comments or questions, again, Martha, appreciate it very much you taking the time this evening to come join us. And at that point, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you so much, Martha. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Martha.
Thank you.
You keep in touch with Mark and Allie?
Oh,
She's gone. That's all right. Question for next time.
there you go. Well, that's a good conversation. We, as you say, see you later. So, okay. Well, I wanted to talk briefly about the feedback from the presentation to the Board Transportation Committee. We've talked from fairly early, for quite some time, about we have to prepare a work plan. We have to present it to the Board of Supervisors, get our previous year's activities approved. Tell them what we've done the previous year, get next year's activities approved. And so to finally be able to do that was nice. It was nice. And I want to thank two of our commissioners, Kevin and Pete, who were able to find the time to join me there to make the presentation. I was looking forward, so I couldn't tell. They're probably making hand puppets or behind me, to show the board that how we're all together on this. I'm joking, of course, gentlemen. Really, thanks very much for joining the conversation there. And so as I was preparing the presentation, and I want to go over it very briefly, but the comment I want to make first is that I noted, and I remember we've talked periodically about, how many times we talked about the work plan. Not every meeting, but, often we would talk about the plan and what we're doing, things like that. And I think that was appropriate at the time. But also acknowledge then, we'll acknowledge now, we don't want to just talk about the work plan every month. But I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to get into the work plan and pick things out of the work plan that we want to work on. And when you look at it from that perspective, and Calvin, I should have asked you to do this before. Can you pull up the work plan very briefly? If not, that's okay, because we did send it out. What's happened here is that as you look at the things we've done, not surprisingly, they fit in the work plan. And so when I made the presentation, just a couple slides, talk about why we're here, talked about what we did in 2021, talked about some key meetings there. What turns out to be actually apparently our annual Thanksgiving meeting with Rachel, because she's come to see us twice, both time in November. And then talked about some of the key elements of the plan. Each, those guiding principles at the beginning, our goal, not just to take a position, but point to a solution. Talked about the focus areas. And I was very, it was very nice to be able to point out that each of the focus areas had a commissioner who'd agreed to participate in those areas, and just to show that we're, how involved we are here, and also we're tying it to the comprehensive plan and things like that. So. I think the presentation was well received. It was a short one, but because we had about, I think, 3 to 4 minutes or so to make the presentation at the end there, but packed a good deal of information in there. This 3-page plan. Thank you. Here, which is the same as what we saw before, except I added a little in the title, just exactly as we approved, other than that, exactly the same. And so the board did not seem to mind at all. In fact, I think maybe they were relieved that we didn't give them a written document. We have the outline here. We had the short presentation there. There was no regret on their part that we didn't give them a 20-page document that they have to read. And so that's words to live by for the future as we go forward with things. We'll give presentations. We will, bring well-developed ideas together, but we don't have to sit down and write everything, because that's going to be a huge issue. Not that we're going to stop people from writing, but it's not the way we're gonna go forward here. So they were, no concerns or questions really raised about the content, and I took credit or said that this presentation here is both to tell you what we did in 2021 and what we're doing in 2022. So both boxes are now checked. One of the things that did come up, it was a Supervisor Stork that made the comment. I mentioned and acknowledged, of course, the close relationship we have with Fcdot and how helpful Fcdot has been throughout our activities here and the support they gave for our offsite back February of 2021. But acknowledge that we are independent. That's our role here, is to advise the board. And Supervisor Stork picked up on that and said, I'm going to paraphrase him a little bit. Certainly understand you want to work together, but we want you to be independent. The Board of Supervisors wants an independent voice for us, and we've known that as we talked about. It was nice to hear there. So I think we're well received, ready to go forward. I do have something that came out of sort of the side discussions in this. I'm going to talk about it a little bit for our next meeting, but we received no feedback, specific feedback during the meeting from the board, none since then. So our plan is approved, and off we're going to go. So what I wanted to do is to sort of shift the conversation in a little bit here to talk about some of the things we do next, because I think that'll get us into the implementation. The plan will be in our background, but we're not working on the plan. We're just doing our things. And so I'll open it up for questions right now, or observations or questions, and see if anybody has anything they'd like to add or questions there. Particularly Pete and Kevin, since you were there and were there for the presentation.
Yeah, it actually has nothing to do with me being there, but I got a call from Sally Kittleoff, Supervisor Walkinshaw's transportation aide today. Mm-hmm. And oddly or coincidentally enough, she had been talking to our planning commissioner, Mary Cortina, who mm-hmm. I've met with a couple of times and had known for many years. We've worked on a few things. But Mary, was more interested in getting some coordination with the TAC and the Planning Commission. Mm-hmm. And so I told Sally, I said, well, oddly enough, we've had that on our agenda for, 2 or 3 years, and we never pulled it off. But then it almost like it got superseded by the work plan before the BTC that we did. So my question is, where do you think we are with the Planning Commission?
My view of the Planning Commission is I absolutely want to do it. The question is what we want to talk about. And I think that the work plan is a good place to look for ideas, but we aren't necessarily limited to that. So what I would ask, Kevin, your thoughts here, and we can discuss it for a few minutes, because I think this is absolutely the kind of thing we want to do. What should we be doing with the Planning Commission? There are certainly, zonings with parking and things like that. So when we're to a stage where we think we have something that we want to advise the county to do that touches upon Planning Commission activities, we absolutely can reach out then. Or we can sort of reach out in general and say, hey, here's what we've got. I will say it. Maybe sort of show them the work plan. Here's what we're focused on. Let us know if there's anything on here that strikes your fancy. We absolutely can do that. But I think we want to, rather than just say, hey, let's get together, I think we want to be able to talk about what. And even if we want to believe that ought to be just sort of an intro, then we characterize it accordingly.
Yeah, no, we definitely don't want it open-ended. I mean, yeah. I don't want another year of work plan discussion, but actually, the way I left it with Sally was that one, I'd be happy to meet with Sally and Mary, and when I've been meeting with Mary the last couple of weeks, anyways. I could happy to do that, but I also said Mary's free to send a letter to you, email to our chairman, saying we'd like to meet on these. For this purpose, and we could narrow it down that way. I should know this, whether she's the transportation chair for the planning commission, and I don't. But if she is, it would be, make even more sense for her to be taking the lead on this. So I think we can definitely, and I would definitely be in favor of narrowing down the scope of any such meeting.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Kevin, because you've got sort of a center of gravity, in the Braddock district of you and the transportation aide and the planning commissioner from that district, it's a nice place to sort of, generate some ideas for discussion. And we can, I don't want to go too far. It could be a time to let transportation aides know what's going on, or we want to focus just on the planning commission, which I think is probably what we want to do, because we've met with the aides before. We've not met with the planning commission. So yeah, if we've got 2 or 3 topics that we think I'm going to talk about, I'm happy to have whatever communications would be appropriate with the planning commission chair or whoever, their transportation designee, to set that up, and would love your help.
And the last thing I'd say on that, the interesting thing I found in my discussions with Mary is that just the wealth of information that they wade through. Mm-hmm. And so if you take that on the transportation side, they may be making us aware of things that we were not aware of, or they could be asking us to explore a little deeper to help them out on something that may be coming before them.
Well, I'll just, thought occurs to me that one or more of us could perhaps join the meeting as an observer, just to listen and see the kind of things they're talking about. Obviously, we can also look at notes, but notes are not always representative of the conversation, because they tend to be short. I think having more of a Vulcan mind meld will be helpful. Because one of the other things is that I'm 90% sure that the Planning Commission is another group that has to put a report together, and their volunteer group as well too. And their reports do tend to be written. They're much more detailed. I understand they're very detailed. I'm not saying we try and become them in terms of the level of analysis we do, but certainly we want to be able to complement their activities, whether we're taking some of the transportation pieces and extending it, or whatever the case may be.
Definitely.
Okay. All right. I tell you what, Kevin, we can talk offline, before the next meeting about that, and try and set something up so we don't have to just talk about this next month. Although whatever pace you're able to meet with your counterparts, we'll let that be the pacing factor, and then let me know, and we'll we can move forward on this, and maybe come up with a suggestion for discussion next month of what we think we want to do, if you're ready.
Yeah, no, I'll and I'm seeing Sal. We're having a ribbon cutting on our trail, our VRE trail on Sunday, so I'll see her. Mary might be there, but
Okay.
I'll definitely get back to you with more specifics as I talk to them.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Got a little bit.
Pete, go ahead, sir.
If you'd like to hear it.
Of course. Of course.
Well, Dan Stork not only said what he said to you in front of the board, but he came over and talked with me after the meeting.
Okay.
And drove that independence home. He really appreciated it, and per his words, Lusk and other supervisors appreciate our independence and want us to be, not just to rebel rouse or whatever else, but to take a good look at everything and give another opinion. Things that were important to Lusk and to Stork were, and I think to the chairman, were points of conflict. And basically, that's the way I take it, is those are points where people are actually dying at this point. We're at intersections and other things, other places on the roads. Mm-hmm. They would like our help in those areas to in any way, shape, and form we can help. Help push for four-way stops, slower speeds, better trails and connectors, whatever it takes. Let's see. One thing that I got out of the meeting was that one thing we've been pushing also is that maintenance is a big deal. Right now, it's not being properly taken care of, but maintenance is something we need to do in Fairfax County and VDOT need to concentrate on. Let's see. Yeah, that's about it. But the independent look was really what Lusk and both Stork and afterwards our good friend Rachel also encouraged.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to, and not just the independence, although that's part of it, but also it was nice. It was very timely, as we talked about last month, with the TAC just having sent the letter to the board about the safe routes to schools. You know, once we talked about it and worked through it, I think it was the perfect thing to do. It brought it to their attention, to let them know it was important. We didn't sort of force them to do it. We weren't being an advocacy group. We were just saying, hey, this is something that looks to be important. I think you want to look at it, and they're picking up on it. It was also on the BTC agenda. Now, you know, as I said to the supervisors, certainly not going to take credit for having it on the calendar, but glad to be involved in helping bring it to your attention and help move it forward. So that's the kind of thing that the board does want. And so if we notice something of importance and we bring it to their attention, they appreciate it. They appreciate it. Okay. No other sort of comments or questions on the presentation. Again, thanks everybody for all your work for us over the last year to put this together. We'll see what the 2023 work plan looks like later. For now, we're just going to execute 2022 and dive in. And so I think really that's a nice segue into our agenda topics discussion. I'm not going to skip over the public comments. We'll do that, but I think that's really the place to bring the work plan to life. Is those meetings, are those agendas. So when we talk about what we want to do, everything we talk about will probably be connected in some way to the work plan. If not, you know, that can go in the next one. So it's not binding, but it certainly is background for us. So unless there are any other comments or questions about the feed, let's move on to the public comment period. Are there any members of the public here that would like to make any comments or address the TAC? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to other business and announcements. So with that, picking up right where we sort of just left off is the agenda for the April meeting. And this actually is something, the first one here I have is Fairfax County streetlight bulb replacement process. And Pete, I know you're there for a little bit of the conversation. Kevin, more so, we're talking with Rachel about it, but also Shamali Hoth from Mr. Alcorn's office talked to me for a few minutes after the presentation. And this is something that she's raised generally before, but apparently it is very difficult for supervisors, staff of supervisors, taxpayers to be able to figure out how to replace lights that have burned out. They're owned by a lot of different entities. Fcdot, I believe, has some. Virginia Department, VDOT, thank you. VDOT has them, and so they can be tough to get to. And then really the responsibility is on the individual person who has found the light is out to try and figure out whose light it is and try and get to them to fix the light. That's a lot of work. And it's really, it sounds kind of impractical. As I say this, I'm not an expert, but I did stay on Holiday Inn Express. I talked to Shamali and a couple folks about it, and it seems something worthy of investigation. I don't want to jump to solutions or something like that, but certainly if there's a way, for instance, to have a group that does the light replacements, that is coordinated with the groups that owns the lights, and then a way to identify lights that are going out without having to do things too dangerously. That sounds like something that that could be very helpful. It's certainly something that Shamali's been concerned about. I know Mr. Alcorn has two that he has as well. And it's not a huge issue, but one that could pay some important dividends. We just talked about safety moments ago. Safety is certainly
Mike,
something we part.
this is Eric.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there any indication that the people who own the lights don't know which ones they own?
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. The short answer is yes. And, at least we certainly can't say they do. But Kevin, go ahead, please.
I thought he was going to say that don't know that they're out, and I was going to say that.
No.
that's the issue.
What I'm getting at is there's a probably fairly short, finite list of who owns. They may not be merged, but there's probably, say, 5 lists. Says, hey, we pay for this light here because they're getting billed for power. And presumably they wrote it down when they installed it. That seems like, a database merge and an ArcView GIS thing where you go to a map and you go, oh, there's the light and who owns it? Click. Oh, and there's a phone number. Boom. Student project at UVA. I don't know, but this seems probably like it should be straightforward. Am I missing?
Yeah, just to follow up on Eric's point, I'm kind of surprised that this is an issue. I've dealt with it in our community and even outside of our community at a church and around our school, and I haven't had any issues. I mean, there's a map on the county's website where you can click the individual light. You can find it on the map, click the light, and then report it. And then I found Dominion, I think that's who comes and fixes it, does it pretty quickly. So, I mean, I'd be interested in understanding where are there other areas that aren't covered under that map?
That makes a lot of sense because Dominion's making money off of each one of those lights.
Yeah. Let me. I'm sorry, Peter. Let me just jump in on what Jeremy said there, and Eric, because the Peyton in Harity's office had when I complained about all of the lights that I deal with are Vdot on Vdot roads. It's Dominion. I wasn't aware that there were that many other parties that we have with streetlights, but nonetheless, my complaint was if you take Burke Center Parkway or Roberts Parkway, it's impractical to get out of your car and go read the pole number. And Peyton shot back and said, no, the county, which Jeremy just mentioned, has this map that you can go in and then identify the light. Well, I tried to do that, and there were some malfunctions with that map in trying to actually get the location down. And then Peyton shot back to me that they had some problems with it recently. But for the VDOT roads and VDOT lights, where you've got on Burke Center Parkway, there's a whole swath of them out again. A year ago, I went and actually walked, half a mile, took numbers down and reported them. They do fix them right away. But I think it's a fundamental issue that they rely on reporting when, their trucks mainly out during the day, so they can't see which lights are out. I think they need to send people out at night to monitor this. And I don't know whether it was Rachel or somebody else had mentioned that they're doing that, but I wasn't aware of that because it's kind of on my list. I was even going to bring it up with Senator Marsden if I had to see about getting Dominion to do that. Because
Dominion ought to be able to, if whoever installed them, when the thing goes out, there ought to be some indicator back, assuming they put in some sort of comms. But the other way to do this is pay somebody like Maxar to occasionally take a picture and tell you when your lights are out. And if it's a whole string, that's both pretty apparent, and Dominion ought to notice because they're not getting the draw of electricity.
Well, if this, I hadn't thought of, lighting as maybe rising to an agenda item, but if the commission feels strongly enough, I'd love to have the players in here, certainly Dominion. I'm not even aware who the other ones are, but that they would be welcome and find it, because I'd like to give them Eric's suggestion or find out what is the better way to remedy to this so we don't have so many lights out.
And fix the ones that go out sooner and find them, yeah. Pete, did you have your hand up or?
Yeah, just
Okay.
On VDOT roads and Fcdot roads and all that, I think you've pretty well covered it, but I'm sure there's private roads too that lights go out on, and I'm not sure who handles that, if that's Dominion or not. I mean, some of these new developments that they put in are all private roads. I don't know who takes care of the lights.
I can answer that for my community, Pete. In my condominium, we have 2 private roads. We were fortunate enough to not have to pay for the streetlights, but we do pay the electric bill. But the responsibility for the lights is with Dominion. So and I just reported one last night. I've got about 34 streetlights. They call them watch lights when they're on a private property. I have them all on an Excel sheet, so if I just know the address, I can tell you the pole number, and then we have to report that to Dominion. I've found that you have to report it to their business office, because if you use the form on their website, it's just tragic. These guys, I talked to the linemen when they come out here to fix the lights, and even though I've provided the pole number and the address, it's not showing up on their map, and they'll drive around. I'd love to get, a higher up from Dominion in there and ask them what the hell is going on. I mean, it's how many billion-dollar company, and they've got flaws that just on this reporting that just make no sense at all.
That might be a place to start.
I think it is one of them. However many purveyors of lights there are in the county, we need to invite them in to talk to us and explain their procedures. Because maybe we need, someone or something in the middle to do the survey, to maybe even make the repairs and charge whoever's light it actually is for that repair. I don't want, like I say, I don't want to go too far down the road of generating solutions, but certainly if there's something the county can do to make it easier for our citizens to identify lights that don't work with confidence and get them fixed in a reasonable length of time, that sounds like something that's a good thing. And it's not, Jeremy, not sure how big a problem it is. And I think that is absolutely one of the first questions. Is this an isolated situation? Is it just the 50 or 100 streetlights that Somalia has driven past just all happen to be these ones that are really hard? Or is the problem bigger than that, or whatever the case may be? Or Jeremy, maybe you've got the one part of the county where things are going okay. I don't know. But,
So
okay.
Calvin,
Yeah, I think it's also a challenge. You see a street light on a major street, you just assume that somebody else would deal with it. So I think that there is an opportunity to just help educate people that if you see it out, then you should report it.
Yeah.
You see on my screen that I found it how you report the streetlight outage. The streetlight either owned by Dominion Power or Novak, and the light that at the intersection probably belong to VDOT. And there's a little thing that's called a streetlight reporting map, but I don't know how it works. Probably not
Kevin,
that
is this
easy.
what you were talking about?
yeah.
Yeah, it looked like that. You can zoom in and you can click on and you can say, this one, and it has like the ID number, and this is the Dominion street light. Okay, there we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
if it's working right. But I was going to say, Calvin, since we're on a roll, do we have our April agenda topic now?
We're close.
We listed is on we listed the item for April. Yes.
Streetlights? We can,
That's-
Well,
We can
we listed
rope
that the
in,
Fairfax County streetlight bulk replacement process. Yeah. If you look at the agenda, yeah.
Yeah, but Kevin, to pick up on, yes, streetlights, but also we absolutely will need Fcdot to participate and build around sort of the website where they're doing and stuff like that. But what about VDOT? What about, the other folks there? We probably want to bring them in. We don't want to bring them in. We need to do a bit more research, I think, and I'm happy to take the lead on trying to frame that up a little bit. And to tell you the truth, I'll go back to Shamali and say, now remind me again, please, the problems you identified, because those are the questions. Those are questions that we want to have answered, if not by Fcdot, hopefully by the folks that are there. If not by the folks that are there, who else do we need to have answered this question? We can maybe put those together sooner. And then, as I'm thinking about this, if we have a list of questions, send that to the Fcdot streetlight group, Calvin, whoever they are. Say, these are some of the questions we've got. Can you answer all of them, or will we need to have other folks involved?
Well, we had a couple months ago, I think this question was raised. And the woman that was speaking to us told us about this streetlight reporter. Well, a couple of days later, I went out there and found the darn thing. And it goes in there and it has the pole number for every streetlight in the county. I went out here while you were talking and looked it up and found it. I'm not sure that it's working, because if I click on the pole near my house, it says no information available. What it did the last time I did this a month or so ago was that it tells you who owns the light. It gives a reporting number and allows you to report it right there on the spot. You can, just one click of your mouse and it works. Supposedly it works, but it seems to me that if you have this thing and it's working, and like a lot of stuff, it doesn't work. It doesn't seem to be working. If it does, then it's a matter of publicizing this to the general public that you have a street light out, go to this URL, identify your street. Yep, that's the one that's down the street from me. Click on it and report it. That seems like the 21st century way to do it. Of course, like most things in the 21st century, they don't work right all the time. But it's better than getting out of your car in the dark with a flashlight and trying to read that poll number. And I've done this on occasion some time ago. I said, I'm going to be the street light reporter. And I say, well, that light there's out. We had one down by the bridge. It was out for a long time. I said, so one day when it was light out, I stopped there and got out and copied the thing down and to Dominion. But these lights here, virtually all of them are owned by Dominion, except for that in the corner of the county up near Herndon, which is Novak, and I don't know who that is, but whether they're on the map too.
So
probably
this
about 85 or 90% of the lights in Fairfax County are the purview of Dominion.
So
but yeah, I think the tool here is making it work.
So I just went to the website on my phone, and if you click on the label for the number, it says no information available. If you click on the little dot for the light, you get the little window pane that lets you report.
Yes, there we go. That's it.
And that's a flaw in the design of the web page.
Right.
Not a good human factors thing, because if you just click the one and it says no data, then you're frustrated.
Who owns the web page? Do we know who owns the web page, who runs it, maintains it?
Fairfax County.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me be clear.
Go ahead.
It's got Esri on the lower left corner, so they paid Esri to do it. I'm sure it's an app.
Okay.
Certainly not making the charge that nothing works, but we recognize that
I
it's
see
not.
that now. That if you do click on the little poll rather than the number, it tells you. And then presumably, if you click here, You can report a problem with that light. Street light out, provider name, Dominion, phone number, closest address, blah, 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 submitter's name, email, blah. But I know nobody here knows anything about it.
So I'll submit it's clunky, but it's functional.
Yeah. I think it's worth spending a little bit of our time having Fcdot and maybe Dominion, hopefully Dominion at least, and maybe Novak, come join us about identifying and replacing streetlights. Can lay some groundwork there because we don't want to just do discovery in their meeting. I'd like to be able to, try and frame up a little bit about what we want to discuss. But even if where we end up is better messaging, maybe some suggestions for adjusting their website design, that's not inconsequential. And what we've then done is we've looked at streetlights, big safety issue, and done what we can to make their replacements as smooth as reasonable, or highlight as an issue that needs further attention. Maybe it is something that requires more effort. But to me, this is absolutely a topic that fits with the kind of things we said we're going to do. It's been primarily sort of identified in the trail, sidewalks, and bikeways. That's where most of our safety discussion is. But then, of course, everything has safety implications. The street design piece there as well too. So, not implying that this is only a trails issue, because clearly it's not. It's a big streetlight issue. Calvin and Marcus, what I was going to ask is reach out to the streetlight folks in Fcdot and let them know about our interest in having them come next month, and then let's try and add to the to the line of folks as we go forward. I'll reach out to Shamali and tell her what we're doing. I wouldn't be surprised if she wants to join us next month and ask some questions there.
I think if we have this tool, a lot of it's a matter of publicizing it. It just isn't common knowledge to people. I mean, we were sitting here in a TAC meeting and most of us didn't know anything about it. I mean, if you can sell this like you can toothpaste. I mean, just I thought of putting it in my periodic that comes out for people, residents of my development. This is how you report a streetlight outage. Mm-hmm. This is what you do. And most people in the county are with it, so if they know what to do, they'll do it.
Well, yes, it's reporting, but it's also getting them fixed, and having a smoother process. But Kevin?
So, Mike, as you know, as I'm wont to do, to shortcut these things, here's what I would propose, and you can tell me why it won't work. You just go ahead and invite Dominion and Novak, and if there's a third or fourth, to the April meeting. We inform Fcdot, specifically the streetlight people, that we're going to do that, and they can either come or send us what questions they would like asked, and the same for VDOT.
Strangely, Kevin, I think actually that will work pretty well. The thing I'm thinking about, though, is maybe starting with Fcdot and saying we would like to have a conversation about streetlight replacements when they're burned out. We'd like you please to reach out to to Dominion and Novak and VDOT. Who are the folks you work with? Is there anybody that you work with? If they do, that's good. That means there's some communication set up. If they don't, well then we need to find somebody. And I think that because that's part of the connection we want to make here, is so that everybody who's got a stake in the ownership and a replacement of lights are in one place.
Well, if they do, great, come to the meeting and we'll have the discussion with Dominion and Novak as to what's working and what isn't. And if they don't, even more reason to come to the meeting and query them and say, hey, here's where we're having problems. How can we make this work better? Yeah. And we can then just knock it all off in April.
Oh, absolutely. I think we do want everybody there. And I think that my anticipation, Fcdot is not unaware they know the streetlights burn out. They've got the website, so they're certainly aware of it. The extent to which there might be some shortcomings, maybe they haven't seen it. What do they see? What are they doing? And I think that they can very much help us frame up some of the questions and be part of the solution. Because as we go forward, I easily imagine questions coming up where, well, Dominion, could you do X? Fcdot, could you do Y? No commitments next month, but maybe we could frame up some things there. Maybe there's some small changes by itself might solve something. But yeah, Kevin, I definitely agree. If I'm following you correctly, I think we want everybody, all these stakeholders, in one room or one virtual room in April, in our next meeting, and we'll try and do it in April.
Well, another thing is we could find out from them which of these lights are. They have a replacement program. They've done some in our neighborhood already. They're replacing things with LEDs, which means that the problem is going to be at least partially self-liquidating. And find out, how that process. We got 20% of the lamps replaced or 80% of the lamps replaced, things like that, because the LEDs will last a lot longer, saving Dominion money.
Yeah. And there is an LED switching program, and that might be another part of the conversation there. So that when you do change out the lights, can you change them to LEDs and maybe be done with this for an extended period of time?
Mike,
yeah, I'll
that,
just point out that saving Dominion money, Dominion is charging someone for those lights, for the electricity. They're not, they maintain the system because they're the electrical guys, but somebody is paying for those lights. So efficiency changes, they may not have as much of an incentive as we might think.
That may be, in which case we'll have to force it on them.
I think Calvin,
respectfully, but
jump
Mike,
in here.
okay.
I think that if I'm not mistaken, streetlight is not something that Fcdot is responsible for, but I think that belongs to Public Works and Environmental Services.
Okay.
And I've been sitting to one of their presentation to the board where they were talking about the streetlight program, the replacement, and the LED conversion. And that they've been working on that for quite some time, and I think they still have some a few thousand that left because I think it's like under Novak. So there's some issue with that, but they have been converted to LED. And the streetlight out. I think that I can check with those people and see if they can come to the meeting, or they can let us know who to invite from Dominion or Fcdot or Novak.
Yes, appreciate
But
that.
definitely, I will check with my supervisor, with Tom, and see if they have any suggestion or anything like that. Yeah.
Yes, please.
The other angle there is certainly active Fairfax, and to the extent that there's any policies that we would want to mix into this discussion about what they're looking at as far as streetlights.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think that part of active Fairfax, and I'm not too much involved into that, but I think that the part of active Fairfax, they do look at the street line. Yes.
Well, certainly what we can do is let our active Fairfax friends, who we know very well for all the times they came by to see us last year, let them know what we're talking about and invite them to join us in the meeting. Here's an opportunity to have a larger group of folks. We've talked about doing this to sort of almost like a working session, not exactly, but kind of like, where we are learning. Yes, that it's our meeting. We are the ones, the focus of the presentations, but to have other folks there who have a stake and an interest, either as presenters or just folks who have an opinion. And active Fairfax, Jeremy, that's a great example. I think it's a great idea to keep them involved, and yeah, as I say, maybe invite them to join us.
I would also be interested in understanding, apparently on the website, there's a process for an individual or a community to pay for a streetlight, and that Dominion would then cover the cost, or the county. but I've never been able to find out what that process is. Could a community actually install streetlights? What the cost for a community would even be? I think that there's a link on the website. It just says I think you can request it or something. I guess it's on another website, but if we have any information, I'd be interested in understanding if that is still a process in Fairfax County.
Okay.
Jeremy, I think it is. I know there's some communities in Burke Centers that don't have streetlights and have dealt with that.
Okay.
It is expensive. But what, Jeremy, what I wanted to ask you was when you brought up back to Fairfax, right now I was envisioning that meeting in April being operational. In other words, fixing streetlights that aren't working. If we have active Fairfax there, are we then widening the discussion to construction of putting in, streetlights that aren't there, which is kind of a whole nother area?
Yeah, we can work through that. That's a fair point. I don't want to broaden it too much. We should be specific in kind of what we're looking at here, but I guess I just raise it just to think through about kind of what type of outcome and presentation we want.
Yeah, I mean, if they're, if they have operational issues right now that they're aware of, that, that they would be welcome at the table. But if it's, hey, as we build these sidewalks or trails and we want to put streetlights up on them or the lighting on them, it seems to me it's like kind of a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Jeremy, there's a program called the Spiritualized Citizen Petition Program, where you can petition for new streetlight. But I think the funding is very limited, so you have to compete with like other people. Request for a streetlight, and also there is a program that's called the DIMBO program, which is to upgrade the existing streetlight to like LED. So that there's two different programs. Yeah.
There's like a private contribution link there too.
There's also a developer program. Yes.
No, the private contributions at the second to the bottom. Is that like, I thought that was like if somebody wanted to put a street light in front of their house or something.
I'm not sure about that. Yeah.
The more we look at this, and if I could, picking up on Kevin, your point, and Jeremy, your response, absolutely, we'd want to manage the expectations for Active Fairfax if they join us, that yes, this is an operational discussion, this is not a future planning streetlight discussion. And if that dulled their enthusiasm, like, never mind then, okay. But I think there might be some interest, at least in maintaining safe streetlights everywhere. I'm sure there'd be some interest in that. But the other observation I was going to make here, that each of these websites Calvin is locating, interestingly and not surprisingly, are all public works websites. So we can see, obviously, that Public Works is very involved in streetlight programs. And quite honestly, Kevin and Pete, when we talked to Rachel about it the other week after the PTC meeting, the people she was talking about were all Public Works. So I'm not saying we just sort of like throw it over Public Works, but certainly we recognize that there is some activities going on here. And I think that's one of the things we want to find out. And Calvin and Marcus, as you reach out with Fcdot, what kind of connection does Fcdot have with Public Works about streetlights? Is it sort of all Public Works responsibility? What role does Fcdot have and stuff like that? I still think it's worthwhile for us to ask this question. But if we find that the Public Works group has a lot of activities in this place, maybe we end up pointing our relying on those activities. And I don't know if anybody has a question that occurs to me also. Do we know, and we can look into, I think, is there a advisory commission to the board for Public Works? Is there a Public Works advisory commission? If so, maybe that's someone to reach out to, our counterparts, and say, hey, what do y'all up to?
We may find out it's us.
It
Yes.
that would be interesting.
Well, I would suggest too that you take a look at this map, all of you, and kind of thumb through it. I did, and I was really surprised the number of parts of this county where there are no streetlights. It was really kind of a surprise. They build these developments. The builders aren't required to put them in, or the county doesn't put them in, or, where does the impetus come from? I mean, you have to put in water and you have to put in utilities, but you don't have to put in streetlights. And of course, I know there's a couple of neighborhoods in my neighborhood where they don't want them. Okay, fine. You don't have to have them. Then that's the neighborhood where the cars get broken into and stuff gets stolen. Okay, sorry, fella. Lock your car. If you don't, it may not be there in the morning. But yeah, streetlights are crime prevention too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But
Okay.
the woman did say that this piece of software they have is fairly recent. It's not like it's been out here for 10 years. It's been here probably less than a year. And it's a new tool. And like I said, probably 98% of the county doesn't even know it exists.
Okay. Well, I think we sort of framed up the issue a little bit. Calvin, we can work off afterwards here about exactly the questions, but I think the big ones are Fcdot. Who is it in Fcdot that oversees streetlight replacement in whatever way is appropriate for Fcdot? And also their relationship with Public Works. Are they communicating with Public Works? Who are the Public Works folks they're working with? Rachel's actually, provided a couple names when we talked previously, so we can pursue that as well. And so I'd like to key around sort of the county to start, and then from there bring in Dominion, bring in Novak, and bring in VDOT, and have a discussion there. So let's see if we can get that ready for the April meeting. This is going to take a little bit of work to put together, so I'll go ahead and get started on it, and try and put some pieces there together. Any contributions or thoughts or assistance anybody wants to offer is welcome. And we'll pull this together here for try and do this for April. So
Mike, just a final comment.
Go ahead.
The fairfaxcounty.gov documents night stewardship brochure, Fairfax County. It talks about a couple of things, and it says dark skies are not just important for, and then you got to download the document, but it may be that there's active interest in less lights in certain areas. So,
or LEDs that don't have light pollution going up like they do in Tucson, things like that. So okay, what's the name of that group there, Eric?
The search term I used.
Night stewardship, you
said? Yeah, well, that's not what I searched on, but that's what the page came back with. I looked for night lights image Fairfax County.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right.
Eric's onto something there, because I know some of the environmental groups have specified the brightness of the LEDs that they want, not the daylight compensating ones, but the ones that are downplayed somewhat.
Okay.
It apparently confuses things like birds. They think it's daylight.
Makes sense.
Okay, not to harp, but if you don't have streetlights, too bad. We're not talking about light pollution. That's all another topic. We're talking about lights that have been built that are supposed to be working and they're not. So I just would like to keep it on that so we can do it in one meeting and have a happy outcome, like safe routes to schools, and have another star next to our name.
Completely agree, Kevin. Just it's always good to be pre-warned. so
Yeah.
that when these things come up, we can go like you just did. Let's get back on topic.
That's right.
So, good job.
What's that?
Thank
Okay,
you.
sounds good. Okay, I tell you what, that's I think we're teed up for April here. As I say that, notionally, I'd like to try and have 2 topics per meeting. This will be a good length one right here. What I'd like to do, as I'm shifting really now to sort of the chair's report, and really could have said agenda for May and other meetings, I'd like to go through some of the other topics a little bit here. It's relatively speaking, we're doing pretty good on time. It's 9:15, because this is what I want to be able to do is have some things percolating for a month or two, so that when the time comes, we aren't just looking for the topic for next month. We've got 2 or 3 months kind of generally teed up, and so we're just working through them. So we'll key on April for the streetlight. Thanks very much, and Calvin, we'll talk afterwards about that. Jeremy, if I could, the Wells Falls Church, I put this here notionally, thinking maybe you'll be ready. Any updates you think that still might be a good time, or we don't have to do anything necessarily, but I just wanted to see what you thought about this for May.
Yeah, no, I think it's just information presentation and to gather the TAC's feedback on the larger scope of how they're approaching these type of issues. And so there's actually 2, I think, studies happening, the West Falls Church, and then there's something related that's happening at Huntington. And so I talked with staff, and so I think the plan is to combine those into one presentation so they don't have to come back.
Okay.
But there's some community meetings that are happening, and so I think the plan is to Fcdot to gather all the community feedback, and then once they kind of have a rough sketch, then to bring it to the TAC. So I think we're probably looking at later in the spring at the earliest, like after May.
Oh, after May. Okay.
Yeah, I think May is potential, but that might be pushing it early.
Okay. All right. We'll see. We'll check back again next month, and if it needs to be June, we'll say June.
Yeah. Okay.
Another option, Confederate Names Task Force report. I was involved in that. We talked about that briefly there. There is some funding associated with perhaps providing impact payments for folks that are affected by the street name change, seeing about the some of the changes they're talking about doing there. So I put that there as a potential. I don't think it's something that's critical for us necessarily to go over, but I'll since I was on the group there, I'll keep an eye on that, and if it looks like something worthwhile, I can bring it up and I can put it on the agenda, or more likely just do it in chairman's remarks or something like that.
Mike, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Could you just tell me what, if your street name change, you're eligible for funding? I didn't.
It's not quite that simple, but the idea is that the task force recognized and the board of supervisors recognized that changing street names is a cost for folks who live on the streets. As well as changing the actual street signs along the public street signs and things like that. You need new, well, for those who still use paper bills, you have to adjust your address. You've got to change some of your paperwork and your documentation. I'm not sure exactly where the line is drawn, and we in the group did not try and do a comprehensive assessment of all the costs that would be that would come along. But that is something that Fcdot is looking at, and that's the kind of thing that could be a topic for presentation or at least discussion later on.
Okay, odd, but okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that issue really ripe yet? I mean, you're still in the process of deciding which streets should be renamed.
Well,
Go on for a while, or you're about ready to wrap it up?
Well, no, the task force did recommend changing the street names, and what's happening is the board of supervisors now has it under advisement. The idea here is that the Confederate names report is being acted upon by the board of supervisors, and so it looked like there could be something actionable, or at least a change by around about that time. So I'll keep an eye open on it, but I don't think it would be a big topic. Moving on. Go ahead.
There might be an interesting update from Noel for the legislative. The General Assembly summary or update from her.
Okay.
I can check with her if it's a good time for that update.
Okay.
Would you like to be added to that, or?
Sure, absolutely. I don't have that I don't have it on the list. That's a good point. So yeah, please let me know. Let us know when Noelle thinks would be a good time to come back. I think they just finished their session recently.
Yeah,
So
she just came back from Richmond this week. Yeah.
okay. All right. Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. Please let me know. And that that could be a well, maybe an April conversation. I don't think the legislative update needs to be too long necessarily. But yes, let me know what that looks like, please.
All right, I will.
Okay. Kevin, this is your issue a little bit here. In fact, it's a lot here is yours, the bus service from underserved areas. I will say for the good of the group, but also for further conversation later, I talked to Marcus after our last meeting, and he expressed some personal interest in issues related to this. And so would like to do this, again, as I acknowledged. Part of the reason I was asking questions about the bus plan related to the Silver Line was just sort of getting a sense for overall bus planning and stuff like that. But what are your thoughts on when do you think would be a good time, what we want to talk about? And as I say that, I would encourage you to talk to Marcus, because there might be some ideas both of you get from each other that might help shape this and maybe even drive a schedule. But with that, Kevin, what do you think?
Marcus being, remind me.
Marcus Moore. He's here. Are you with us, Marcus, I think?
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry for calling you out like that, dude. You know how I am sometimes.
No problem.
But you made the mistake of telling me you cared about stuff like that, so now I know.
Yeah, no problem at all.
So.
I'm sorry, what refresh my memory, what is Marcus's responsibility on this?
He's Calvin's boss. New boss.
Okay.
And Marcus was also involved in some of our early TDM work, some of the surveys you're doing. Gosh, we were talking in 2018 or 19 about that. So it's been a while since he's been with us, except he was with us, of course, last month with his new position.
I did remember that. I didn't know that he was interested on this area of the bus service. And let me just report that I think I may have reported to you, Mike, or others, but Michael Felshaw,
yes,
if I'm pronouncing it right. When I talked to him, he was eager to come to the TAC, but he had to run it up the flagpole. And then when he did so, and this is a very brief subsequent conversation, I gathered that he was a little less eager, or they were a little less eager to have him come before the TAC. But that reason may have been that they wanted to get before the BTC, which he was there at the last meeting. So
yeah,
I could reach out to him again and say, hey, have you got the green light to do that, and let you know, and we could get that on the agenda.
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, Marcus will see what's going on because he's with Calvin there. But and Marcus, I'm not going to speak for you, and it's not fair to sort of put you on the spot. And I'm not trying not to do that. But I was intrigued with some of the ideas you had and some of the thoughts you had of looking at the focus area, and I thought it might be. If you and Kevin were to chat, who knows what could come from it. But yes, please, if you could, Kevin, reach out to Michael and see what he's thinking, and then we'll frame that up. So again, that's something you can reach out to me, whenever you want, or we can talk about that next meeting, because certainly is not a topic for the April meeting, that's for sure.
Marcus, were you aware of any pushback from bringing this issue up for a TAC meeting?
No, this isn't anything that I was aware of at all.
Okay.
When I spoke to Mike, it was purely just some feedback that I've heard at the time, in my years doing TDM outreach, that there were just a lot of interest in.
Marcus, you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah. No, you're fine.
You're cutting out, unfortunately. Okay.
Say that again.
You're cutting out for me. Can you hear him okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, I got a headset on, so I didn't know if I thought it was working properly. But no, I was saying in my years of doing TDM outreach, it was it was just something that I've heard over years from the riders themselves and the commuters in the area, that they would have an interest in, maybe taking advantage of certain modes, if there was a different, connectivity from traveling outside of Fairfax into Fairfax. So I think when Mike and I spoke, I just kind of was giving him a little bit of feedback on that perspective, that, there's been some concerns about individuals where they were hesitant to try certain services just because the amount of time that it may take them to commute, let's say, for example, from a Stafford to Fairfax, just because it would kind of take them out of their way in order to get into Fairfax versus them hopping in their car. So it was just from that perspective, but I haven't heard anything specific on the conversation that you spoke with Mike Felschow on.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe if need be, we'd have a three-way conversation. Although I don't know that it's in our purview, that we're worried about people from Stafford trying to get here. If our citizens need to get to Stafford, I guess we would be, if that's where the job center was. But I'm not sure the other way around, but we can, take that up as necessary. But, and just by the way, Marcus, I think of all the speakers tonight, you're the one I've heard most clearly. So I don't know if others are having problems with it, but his headset works very well from this side.
Oh, okay. I'm glad. Yeah. No, and I understand where you're coming from. That, like I said, that was just a few things that I have heard, and that was purely just because a lot of the individuals that do work within Fairfax that we've engaged with were residing outside of Fairfax. So just the amount of travel that maybe impacted the commute for even those internally. So it was just a reoccurring message that I've heard over the years. So, one of the things that I spoke to Mike on was that, it was one of the things that I've held on to over a number of years, just trying to figure out a way to increase the connectivity and maybe just have different conversations with some of the local jurisdictions and how they're doing their planning for their routes, to see if there was any discussions on how to better connect those services so that it was more efficient for everybody. So, but yeah,
Okay.
I agree with you completely.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page here, and I'll check with Mr. Felshaw and see if he's if they are ready, and if they're not, if he's still getting pushback, then I can take that up with the chairman here as to why that is. So,
okay, sounds good.
From there.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Marcus. Appreciate you having a conversation there. Kevin, one quick observation I'll make about folks from outside the county, live outside the county coming in. I acknowledge it is different, but also, the employers in Fairfax County would have an interest in making sure that their employees can get in. So I know there's no sharp lines anywhere, we know, but if there's a regional piece of this that we want to touch at some point, we'll see where that goes. But again, appreciate you taking the time and helping frame this up and decide where to draw the lines, and maybe even just first.
No, that's a good point, Mike. I cede to you on that. If our business community said, hey, we need to get these guys in from outside the county, that is a relevant transportation issue.
I appreciate it. Okay. There was one other thing I wanted to raise, just sort of while we discuss a little bit, potentially, and Jeremy, back to you. I don't know, we communicated before, and I appreciate you taking the time there as well, but the comprehensive plan, I don't have like a firm thing that, thinking, hey, we need to talk about this or that, but just wondered, any thoughts on that since we communicated, or still sort of?
Yeah, no, I've reached out, but we haven't been able to connect.
Okay.
So hopefully by next meeting. Well,
there we go.
I asked, the question I asked was just, generally, are there any updates? If you were to present something, what would that look like? And so,
okay,
continue to have that discussion.
Sounds good. We'll appreciate it. We'll talk about that later then. Appreciate it. Okay.
Mike, so the other topic, as you know, dear to my heart, is the kind of could be combined, the Dulles Airport tour and the issue on development around the airport.
Mm-hmm.
And we could certainly, when we do the tour, as you remember, we met in the conference room last time. We could certainly get a briefing on where MWA stands on the proposed development around the airport.
Okay. Yes, that would be a good thing to do together. If we do a tour, I think it's pretty obvious it's not going to be on a Tuesday night at 7:30. So we'll have to find a time, during the day to do it. Question then becomes whether we do it in addition to a regular meeting, or we just keep on with our meetings as well as the tour. And maybe after the tour, because apparently we're known for our partying, apparently, maybe have a drink afterwards for those who are alcoholic or non-alcoholic, depending on what your preferences are afterwards. So, Calvin, who did we reach out to at Dulles? Gosh, it's been a couple years ago.
Cooper.
Mike Cooper?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do you think I'm thinking out loud, do you think there's any value? I think there's some value, whether the question is how much value there is, depending on when the Silver Line Phase 2 opens, going to the airport after the metro has been open for a while and seeing, so what do you see him? Now, admittedly, that's at least 3 months away. we just learned that. Probably more like 4 or 5. So that puts us into August or September. But that would give us an opportunity to see how maybe how the early ridership is going. I'm not saying we have to hold it up, but there could be an opportunity there. What do you think, Kevin?
I mean, that's all right. What I was going to also mention was that you probably want to do it not in the winter, dead winter.
True.
And then I don't know where the BOS is on this comprehensive change in the zoning and whatever they need to do, but we wouldn't want to be doing it after that if we were needed to have input on that. And then in a much more specific time of day question there, just to point out, if I remember, I think they get busy in the afternoon with the international flights coming in. And so I think maybe we have to meet before, or they would prefer that we meet before 3 p.m. If I remember, I think we met around the lunch hour at that time.
Yeah, okay. So, yes, life does not have to revolve around alcohol, so we could even have lunch afterwards. So
it's always 5 o'clock somewhere, Michael. Let's not forget that.
That's how dare we forget that? So, well, you know what, Kevin? Maybe that's a topic to have with the Planning Commission. If we're talking about comprehensive zoning, maybe that's a Planning Commission discussion. As I say this, and we acknowledge that this is a very sensitive topic among a number of supervisors. So I think we want to be go into that with our eyes open. That anything we do here is going to be.
That's a good, it's actually a good point, because as I alluded to early, the level of detail and the information that Mary kind of pointed me to, Mary, the planning commissioner, if we could do it, it would be worthwhile to get, any input that they have on it that they can share with us before we do the Dulles meeting, because they are, they're in the middle of this comprehensive amendment, so they have a lot to share.
Okay. Yeah, that might be a good topic of conversation. Even if we disconnect from the visit, we can talk about the their views on the comprehensive zoning or something like that.
Yeah, let me, as I said, I hope to see maybe Mary and my transportation aide, Sally, Sunday.
Okay.
Let me get back to you next week and see where we're at on that idea.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have for upcoming topics. Anybody want to? It is sort of chairman's report. Upcoming topics. Anybody want to go any further down the list or add something to the list right now? Feel free to add later, or make a suggestion to me. But if that's it,
I'm just chiming in. I just want to chime in favor of Kevin's idea. Because quite frankly, in the Mount Vernon district, it's a very hot topic, because the concern is that the way the proposed comprehensive plan amendment is being written at this time is something that Mount Vernon District in general probably cannot support. Even though our supervisor is currently on board with the idea of the comprehensive plan, but we think that we can have a better comprehensive plan.
Now,
So
if I could,
so it's a touchy one.
No, I know, and you know, you don't do anything of consequence without running the risk of burning your hands on the hot stove. So
Yes.
just be careful, you know, wear a mitt and not just grab for something and not really think about it.
Yes.
The question I'm going to ask is, when you talk comprehensive plan, do you mean the comprehensive transportation plan or the zoning thing? Because I thought the zoning thing, the part we're focused on was by the airport.
By the airport is what we're talking about, because
Okay.
The way it's currently written, it's based on, frankly, data that's 29 years old.
Okay.
And there's new data that was only 3 years old. So it begs the question, why?
Okay.
And the why, I think, is what makes this a very touchy matter. But our airport people that work on it here in Mount Vernon District, and that is trying to control Norris for the already that we have, feel that the change based on the old language for 29 years ago is going to undo or may undo what we're trying to do in the Mount Vernon Lee districts for controlling airplane noise.
Okay.
Even though the comprehensive plan is dealing with airport noise.
So they're concerned about the national implications, or
Yes.
national.
Yeah. Yep.
Got you. Okay.
It's definitely a bigger issue than it seems.
Gotcha.
But remember what you said earlier, Mike, we are independent. That was reinforced at the BDC. So
we're independent of Fcdot. I don't know how independent we are of the Board of Supervisors, but yeah, we're supposed to be able to navigate difficult issues smoothly and confidently. I'm sure there's gonna be, what could possibly go wrong?
Nothing.
Who doesn't want a good kneecapping occasionally from their Board of Supervisors? So,
well, when we all get replaced, we'll know what caused it.
Yeah.
But I'll sleep well at night.
That's what counts.
We'll thread the needle somehow. We'll figure out a way. But as we have all this discussion, it's appropriate and nice. We've got the Sully representative here, David. Again, thanks for joining us. We know that your district has a keen interest in this topic, maybe the most keen interest, and so glad to hear the conversation and help us shape the discussion there, because the goal here is not to put any of the supervisors on the spot, but there are issues out here that merit some consideration, some review. So, okay.
Does David
right.
have anything he wants to say on that at all, or just any expression of interest on the topic, or if he's still with us?
Don't know. But I will also we're about to go through commissioners' reports, so there'll be another opportunity to for everybody to speak up one last time. And so I think now, I said I thought before, so are we finished now with the possible topics discussion? Very productive. I think we had a lot of good things teed up here, and we barely mentioned the work plan hardly. Oh, I think I just did. Sorry about that. So we just talked about things we needed to focus on. Okay. Well, let's go back to the agenda. So now we're into commissioners' updates. And so I will go once again, as I usually do, in the order in which we were called upon this earlier tonight. And where all of a sudden is there it is. I moved it, I shouldn't have. So let's go to commissioners' remarks. Commissioner Sperling, Linda, are you still with us? Okay.
Kids to bed.
That's right. Had to put the kids to bed. That's right. We'll do, and old people have to go to bed here soon too. Braddock, Kevin, sir, anything else to add?
Calvin, did you? I think you did send out the invitation to the our VRE Burke VRE trail opening on Sunday.
Yes, I did. Yes.
So just highlight, all are welcome to that, and hope to see you there if you can make it.
Okay. Thank
That's
you.
it.
All right, appreciate it. I'm talked out. Commissioner Westenhoff, Kelly, I don't believe you're with us this evening. Okay, Roger Hoskin.
I have nothing to add tonight, so carry on.
Thank you. Vernon, Pete, anything to add?
About that. Just a little tidbit for information-wise. We now have 2 speed studies being done on Richmond Highway Corridor. One short-term and one long-term. Apparently the long-term one may have already been settled, but they haven't reported it yet. And there's where some times ago the TAC helped out and asked Fcdot and Fcdot to listen to the people of the district, and they did. They went back on the widening of the Richmond Highway, and they're working diligently on that. And apparently no one's given me a report yet officially, but unofficially behind the scenes, apparently some good movement has happened, but it may still take some more push later. But people who were absolutely against us some time back have actually flipped, and they're working with us. But stay tuned.
Okay.
Good
Stay
work.
tuned. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Pete. That's good to hear.
Yep.
Anything else?
Yes.
Okay. Lee District. Alexis was not here earlier. I don't think she's joined us now. Providence, Jeremy.
Nothing from me, thanks.
Okay, appreciate it. Springfield, Eric.
Nothing from me, thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Sully District, David. Anything to add this evening?
No updates, thank you.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks for sticking with us. We greatly appreciate it. And so we now turn to our vice chair, who I will ask if she has anything. We know what happens after that. So Mary Pauline, anything you'd like to add?
Nothing to add. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Pete, you shouldn't have been muted. Otherwise, you could have done it.
Yes.
There's a motion on the floor and seconded to adjourn. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of adjourning say aye.
Aye. Everybody.
All those opposed say nay. Good. 9:42. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Good
fellow
job.
commissioners. We'll talk to you soon. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Yep.